I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for the town of Sevastopol on Monday, August 21st, 2023 at 7 p.m. And doing so, would we like to have the Pledge of Allegiance?
We're all waiting.
Will. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Amy, how about the roll call to establish a quorum?
Supervisor Jeannie Vogel.
Here.
Supervisor Derek Daniel.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Here.
Supervisor Mark Hayne.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfle.
Here. All right, good to go. Meet and greet. Well, tonight is going to go very quickly. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, good evening. I'm Hugh Zell. I'm the District 14 County Board Supervisor, which represents the eastern half of the town of Sevastopol and Ward 1 of the town of Sturgeon Bay.
All right, nice. Thank you for joining us this evening, sir. Gentlemen, would you care to introduce yourself, or would you prefer to be anonymous tonight?
Derek? Derek Denise, Kitchery Road.
All right. And behind the camera is, who's now in front?
Larry Jack from Glenn's Road.
All right, good to go. Welcome. Anyone here from the public wishing to speak? Hearing none, we will move on. How about adopting the agenda? It was properly noticed, was it not, Amy?
The agenda was properly noticed.
So then we would need a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion by Derek, second by?
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Approval of the minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting from July 17th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the July 17th meeting.
All right, motion by Jeannie, second by?
Second.
Second by Mark to approve the minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting July 17th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Good, we're moving. All right, first item here on the agenda is let's try and set a time for the budget work session. This always presents an interesting challenge because some of it's up to Amy in terms of when she gets all of her information. So, Amy, do you have just a date to suggest or a couple of dates, and we'll kind of work from that?
Let's look at that first or that second week in October.
The week of the 9th?
The week of the 9th, yes.
Okay, and you think you'll have most of the stuff you need by then?
I do believe I'll have most of the things by then.
Okay.
So either the 9th or the 10th, if that's available.
How does any and all, Monday's fine with me, but I don't know if it's good with anybody else. All right, I got one yes.
Monday would be better.
It's okay.
2, 3?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
What time?
We started it earlier last year.
6 or 6:30 was it, or is it?
I think we used to normally do it at 6. I think we moved it up, or was it 7 and we moved it to 6?
We usually had it like 5:30, but we moved it to 6 because Linda had a class in Appleton that day.
Oh, that's right.
Jeez,
So-
Louise. Okay.
I'd prefer 6.
6 or 6:30 is fine.
I'd prefer
Oh,
6.
I got
At
budget
the
work.
earliest 6 would be my preference.
My calendar last year, 6:30. So does that work for everybody?
So we're meeting at 6:30?
So it's
October 9th.
October 9th, 6:30.
I see the school is having their budget hearing on the 24th, so.
Okay, good. That one's easy.
6:30.
Thanks, Amy.
Yep.
All right, road construction update. So here's where we're at. The county has completed Clark Lake from Matthey to Highway 42, and they have completed Harder Hill. They do have some shouldering work that needs to be completed yet on both of those projects. One of them's almost all done, the other one was just waiting to be finished. I took a look, excuse me. I had the county give me a running tally for where they're at with the roads that they have done. And including the shouldering, we should come in around $82,000 for the two that they have completed against bids of $107,000. So as we kind of projected, you know, they save some money, and hopefully if work continues along those same lines, we'll have excess under our budget, and I'll put it towards doing some, what's the word I want?
Repairs?
Maintenance,
Maintenance?
No, not maintenance.
chip
Tree
seal?
cutting?
Crack filling?
Crack filling, thank you. Going through every word in my book, so we would go through some crack filling. The 21st is the start date on West Whitefish Bay Road and Dunn. So just as a refresher, they're gonna pulverize that. So they will pulverize that, and then they will come back and they will do the blacktopping, which will go down over those culverts that we've replaced. And they will be in the neighborhood because they're working on Clark Lake Road now. So
So the 21st is the date?
they're gonna start on the 21st.
Today.
Like
Like,
tomorrow?
like today?
He said this week, 21st, he had it scheduled. I did not go there to see if they did it or not. So unless there was a weather-related issue, he said they had them scheduled because they get the pulverizer, I believe, from Northeast Asphalt. So I think we're gonna be below, I'm pretty comfortable with that. So we'll do some crack filling if that works out. He'll give me billing as we move ahead. And I think we'll catch up with, we'll spend what we put in the budget. Okay, any questions? All
Are
right.
they running later than usual? I want to say that normally projects were done before the end of August.
No, last year, or year before, they were in September. It just depends on where their equipment is, so they don't have to move it as much. So he told me he was gonna do it right after they started on Clark Lake, because they have the Door Century 100 bike ride, and so they wanna get Clark Lake with one layer on it, so there's not issues with the bikers, so.
Okay, good.
So I wanted to try and give you a little bit of an update on where we stood with the citations on the nuisance ordinance violations and the short-term rental update. And that really has turned into a project because, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Amy Sullivan did a 180 and broke her elbow. So she was having, obviously, a problem typing, to say the least. So as a result of it, a lot of the things that we thought were going to be done really slipped. But this afternoon, we got most of the stuff that we were looking for, and we had a conference call with Tyler Pluff, who Amy asked to fill us in on a process for citations. And I think we're up to speed on what we need to do there. And basically what'll happen is if there's an issue, Amy will fill out a citation, which is a 3-part document.
Attorney Amy.
No,
This thing.
Amy Flock will fill
Okay.
out the citation
All right.
paperwork. One sheet goes to the clerk of courts, one goes to our attorney, and one goes to the person that's being fined. She will then give that document to our attorneys, who will inform the court and fill in the date for a court appearance date. And there's selected dates that are predetermined all the way through the end of the year for that. You're probably a lot more familiar than I am with it, Linda. And then they will take care of the notification to the defendant or to the person that's being fined. And then, depending on the position, they will either plead guilty, pay the fine, or whatever, and the rest of the work will fall with the attorney. If it ends up going to a trial, they'll have a meeting with the judge and, all kinds of things that, at that point, won't necessarily involve us. The other item we were concerned about was what's the process for issuing a second citation or a third. And basically, we have the ability to do that at any time in the process if we so choose to do so. And I'll give you an example with the Brandt property. Unfortunately, the Brandt property is one of the properties that slipped through the cracks, and the actual notification to them and the filing with the courts either happened today or will happen tomorrow. So it slipped past where we expected it to be. And when I was out there physically a week or so back, nothing more was removed. In fact, I think something was added. So the initial fine is $500. They'll send that out. They'll give them a court date. In this case, the Brant court date would be on September 11th, correct?
Correct, at 3:30.
Right, at 3:30. So it's up to us. We can issue another citation, and because we have in the ordinance the ability to do that in $500 increments, each day can be a separate violation, and we can decide what we would like to fine. So in other words, if it's been 10 days, we could choose to do 10 days, we could choose to do 3 days, we could choose to do 1 day. So you're welcome to give me some input on what you think you'd like to do, but there are a couple of what I'll say is recalcitrant people with respect to addressing these issues. So from my perspective, I think we need to shake them up a little bit with something more than a single $500 fine if they don't react. That's just my thought.
So you said we could, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's all right.
So you said we have we can
We
do
can repeat.
$500 a day?
We could do $500 a day, that's the way our ordinance reads. And Tyler basically said this is like parking tickets. You know, just because you got one parking ticket today doesn't mean you can't get another one tomorrow, whether you dispute it or not. And in the case of Brant's, they've been reluctant to do anything. I mean, and they've been warned, whatever. So I think there's probably a situation here where we need to stir them into action. But let's hold that for just a minute. I'll try and just see if there's a couple other things here. We do not need to do more board action with these because we've already taken care of that at our last meeting. And, Fortners was one of the other ones that we believed were, the paperwork had been initiated, it was not. And that's going out either went out today or tomorrow. And this is the Glidden Drive short-term rental. So that should have been addressed earlier. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And the Rushi property, they're working on it today. I have a draft of the letter, but I need to fill in some details for Amy Sullivan. So those are the 3 active ones at this point in time. So going back to the discussion, share your thoughts on how we should deal with people that ignore, what you think we should do or not do. So.
I don't recall if we updated our citation ordinance. I know we have one on the books from like a long time ago.
It's about 8 or 10 years old.
Okay, and it did have a new schedule of deposits then too, I would imagine, and penalties.
It was $500.
To conform with the, not statutes, but the court's filing schedule. Because they have so much for court costs, so much for, yeah, all those different categories.
Well, the ordinance itself,
Attorney's fees.
the ordinance itself that we're talking about for regulating this,
Citation issuance.
the nuisance ordinance actually has the
citation
the
information.
citations built in it.
Okay.
So the first offense is
All
$500. The second offense can be, I believe, $1,000 or $1,500. So it is up to the board how they would like to treat it. So I guess that's what Dan is asking.
Right.
If you want to continue with that $500 as a secondary one, or if you want to give it a week and then go to that second tier of citations.
Correct. So, I mean, given the fact that, and we'll talk specifically about grants, but they have chosen over, God, I can't even tell you how long, to do nothing. I would give them a very short time frame to react. And if they haven't done something within a week or 10 days of getting the citation, I would think we would go and significantly cite them to try and get them into action. So, but that's mine. You know, what you think? And same thing would apply if we have no reactions with Wuxi. And that's been another one that's been out there for, what, 10 years, maybe more? Laddie, when did we tape that house? That was,
Oh, gosh.
Well, I
At
looked
least-
it up, but
I'm gonna
it
say
might have
like-
been 10 years ago.
I'd say,
2015 or something
no, I
like that?
mean, Leo was involved in it at the
Right.
time, and was it Tim Herlash that was the fire chief?
Yes.
So it's gotta be close to 10 years. So,
Yeah, I'm looking at the nuisance ordinance, and correct, it does have the abatement and the
right.
issuance of citation and the penalties and all that in there as well.
So do I hear any suggestions? Otherwise, you want to leave it to Amy and myself?
I'm all for proceeding on the properties that we identified.
Right.
One is a total disaster, I mean, and there doesn't seem any improvement despite the conditions that were set. The conditional use.
Yeah, I think proceeding is right. It's just, I think he's asking for direction on a fine.
Right. Yeah, I'm not backing off of anything we've agreed to
It's
do,
just fines,
you know.
fine structure.
I just think somebody comes forward and said, why did we fine him X? Then the answer is either we agreed as a board that the next violation will be 1,000 and the one after that's 1,500, or we're gonna stay with 500. Or there's gonna be some degree of frequency that you think is reasonable and normal. You know, I would say, you know, with those people that we've identified for a long time, I'd say we give them a very short window. If it's a new issue, we're a little more gracious in our timing. But in the case of people that just basically throw any documentation in the trash and ignore us, I think we should come back and let them know we're serious.
Are we sending these as certified mail, so they have to sign for them?
Right. Yeah. In the case of the citations, it'll come from our attorney through certified mail. We could have it served, but they said it's $60 to $70 to have it served. I mean, spend the $5 for certified mail and leave it at that. So,
Well, if you're going to get someone's attention, I guess the numbers go up, so
yeah.
I'm fine with you using your discretion as
Okay.
chairman.
Any other comments?
The ordinance says each and every day could be considered a
Considered a
separate
separate.
violation.
Right.
$100 a day.
Remy?
$100 a day after the notice has been served.
After the initial notice?
I mean, we obviously have to give them time to react.
Oh, yeah. I would say for a new situation, we give them 30 days.
Yeah.
That's a new one, but
A new,
these
yeah,
are
but
other
one
ones.
that's an ongoing, and there's really
Yep.
only 2 or 3 of them. I think the reaction time has to be quicker, because they're not,
This
remember
isn't-
that they've been chased by the county for years and have not responded to the county. So, you know, now we're spending our dime to do the job that the county didn't get accomplished, so.
We have a couple more coming up too, I think.
There may be,
There's one in, just south of the mill, Sweet Willie's, have you seen that?
I think
The
that
fence
just,
fell down
I think that blew down with the
last
storm.
storm, last Friday. And he hasn't cut the grass there all summer, or cleaned it up, and that's,
We can take care of that one. We've had some success just sending some people letters, asking them to do it before we do it.
that's like the entrance to our town. I mean,
I said that last
you're on
night too.
The highway right there.
I don't know what, he does not have a liquor license. Have you heard anything from him, Amy?
No.
I don't know if he's on Board of Health if something happened, or.
Don't know. All right, well, here, until somebody says differently, I'll give somebody a 10-day window that's that's somebody that's been on our list. And if it's a new person, we'll give them a 30-day window, after which we'll cite them. And I think we should escalate with our ordinance. So the next fine is $1,000, and if it goes again, we do $1,500. And if we have to continue after that, which, God, I hope that's not the case, we'll add $500 each time.
I mean, should we start doing like the city does? If you don't cut your lawn, they hire someone for $60 an hour to come and cut your lawn. You know what I mean? Like, also, we have a cleaning crew come in and a dumpster and start cleaning your yard for you. I mean, should we put that out there? We're gonna have to start doing that.
Well, with Amy and I, we focused on a few people, and so far, a reasonably worded letter saying, please do that, or we will. We've had fairly good response. Now, we have one that, just down the road, that came in and cleaned up partially, but still has some things left. So we're sending them a letter saying, thank you for addressing this, but we need you to
Keep
finish.
carrying on, yeah.
Carry it on, and then keep up.
Yep.
So I think that's the case. I think if we're gonna do it otherwise, we probably have to go back to the attorney and come up with some kind of defined process for that. I mean, I'm not adverse to that at all, because some of these
We
people.
might have to think about getting a nuisance committee again.
I know.
You know what I mean? To actually sit down and put some words together and figure something out. If it doesn't take care of itself on these letters.
I'll tell you what, I agree with you, because I mean, there's a couple so far, like I said, they've been good, but I'll ask the attorney to give me their opinion officially on how we can handle that. Steve Estes, property management, has taken care of the corner over there. The gal that owns that, by the way, they said has passed away. Did you
Oh,
know
really?
that?
I didn't hear
That's,
that.
somebody stopped here at the town and said they tried to contact her.
Jerry?
Jerry, they said it passed away. Now, I don't have any information on it,
Find out.
but that's what they said. So, okay, enough on that topic. Fire contract, as you know, it's up for renewal January 1. I have met with Josh Van Leeshout at the city and the fire chief, and we've established some guidelines or ground rules or options, whatever combination you'd like to use. And I anticipate in September that we will get back together and have some options to discuss at our next board meeting. At least that's my hope. I think that'll happen. So, not much else I can share with you at this point.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would it be a long-term contract like we had before then? You know,
There-
3 years? Whatever.
Yeah, and then we might consider 5, but I think 3's as far as we're gonna go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think it's tracking. And I did, well, I'll share this with you later, we'll leave that go. Glidden Drive Association. Some of you have been approached over the years about the lanes, some that belong to us, some that belong to, we don't know who, some that belong to the Glidden Drive Association. And they formally requested on the 31st of July that we survey the lots or the lanes. They've done some of this themselves to see which lanes are theirs, if there are any deed restrictions, if they're private or public. And they're asking us to consider doing the rest of them. And there's a list of them that are out there. They're also asking us if we want to define anything, like parking, fires, walks, etc. I understand that to some degree, but I also don't want to put any restrictions in that require us to become a police department. They have some lanes that they surveyed that there were issues with vehicle access, so they placed a couple large boulders on 1 or 2 lanes to prevent a car, but still leave people a place to park or walk in or take a wagon or whatever you might want. So they're asking us to set some rules. I'm very reluctant to do that, other than maybe motor vehicles, but I leave that for our discussion. I would guess, just from what I've heard, each one of the lanes that we do would probably cost us $800 to $1,000 for the survey. They would be marked, and of course, Glidden would know the property lines and what the access is. They're also talking about some signage. If you've been on Glidden, they use a white sign with black lettering to mark the access points. There's a lot of 6-foot wide access points going down there, and then there's a number of 50 and 60-foot wide access points. The larger ones are mostly on the water side, although there are 1 or 2 that are on the road side. And a number of them are treated as driveways, like Goldenrod Lane is actually a driveway, but it's been turned into a driveway for a residence on the north and south side. And then Deer Path on the road side is a similar situation. 3 people use the lane as an access point for their homes. So I get calls, Amy gets calls, Linda's gotten calls constantly on these lanes or Schmock Road, which runs behind it. And inevitably, we are with Land Use Services trying to answer the question, or we're with our attorney, or we're with digging through deeds or whatever to try and find out the answer to the question. And it's frankly enough to drive you a little crazy. So although I'm not gung-ho about spending a lot of money to do it, I probably wouldn't be adverse to supporting the surveys on the ones that are ours, so we have some answer. I recently had an individual who called and wanted us to cut trees down that were on Schmock Lane that were leaning into his property. And again, back through the attorney and Holly and everything else, we finally determined that although Schmock Lane is a platted road, it was never accepted by the town, and it's basically treated as no man's land. So we didn't have to do anything with it, and I told the owner that he was free to cut the trees. So I think he would have preferred that we cut the trees, but so I think maybe doing the surveys and trying to get as much legal description and lot lines and whatever is probably a decent investment of time, given how much we've spent over the years. But I'll open it up for your thoughts. Oh, and this document that you have, that Laddie prepared, that has been used to a large degree by the county. When you talk to Holly Hanson, they use this as much as anything as the truth about the lanes. So, at any rate, your thoughts?
Well, I would favor clearing this up once and for all. I mean, this has been going on as long as I can remember. Who owns what and who has access to what. My suggestion would be to hire a title company, determine which lanes or roads do belong to the town once and for all, have them surveyed. As far as signage, we don't indicate public access on any of our other roads that lead to the beach or to the lake or the bay. Shack Road is a perfect example. And just sign it like we would any other road. Fernwood Lane or whatever. The association had listed 6 lanes. I came up with at least 11 lanes. So again, I think a title company or attorney do the research once and for all. This is what the town owns. Put up our sign and just leave it at that. I don't know why we would have to put access, public access here, or bikes only, or no motorized vehicles. We don't do that with our other roads.
No, I'm just thinking the signs that are there are on Glidden's right now, right? Yeah, I'm not necessarily in favor of it either, but there has been some issues with vehicles, and mostly that was driven by construction vehicles during the repair of the beach routine, and I think there's probably been an ATV or 2, but they were never going to catch them. Do you have any other feelings on that, Hugh?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think getting it clarified as far as the lanes that the town owns is a good investment. I know that the the GDA aren't doing the lanes that are private that they own and are doing their own surveys. They're continuing that process and investing in that themselves. With respect to signage, there are existing signs, I believe, on Goldenrod and White Pine, and I would urge the town to continue those, especially where it relates to how wide the town's property is. I know the county does that, say at Lily Bay Dock, where you have concerns about riparian rights as far as what's private property and what is, county property. You have that there at Lily Bay or Wester's, as it's for some of us old timers. And I think it's appropriate to do the same relative to where the town's property extends and where they have where you allow the ability for them to get access down to the beach. There has also been numerous instances of fires in those public access areas, and as you know, we've talked about fires on the beach as part of re-looking at an ordinance, and I'm assuming on any town property you don't want to have fires that are not consistent with an ordinance. So I think even that sort of thing might also be under consideration relative to just public safety, since that is basically people utilizing town property to do that, and I think the town will be mindful of minimizing their liability in that regard.
We would, I was thinking out loud here, I think we'd probably have to have an ordinance behind it if we labeled it no fires on the beach, because otherwise the sheriff would not enforce it. I'm not even sure he would anyhow, but the fire chief could. Biggest problem is if we put it up there, is the enforcement of, the expectation is that if it says that, then, and it's the town of Sevastopol, that we're the ones, and I hate to put us in a position where we can't comply with what we do.
The fires are also, that fire is also a different challenge as well, because on the
Right.
water side of the ordinary high water mark, they're now subject to state zoning, and basically that's under the jurisdiction of the DNR, as opposed to on the roadside, if you will, of the ordinary high water mark. Then that becomes county ordinance domain.
I think the DNR, I'm not positive of this, but the DNR has relinquished a lot of their authority to the county on some of that high water mark determinations, and we'd have to go back to land use services and ask what they've been delegated to do or not do, but in any case, we'd have to do a little more digging before we put up signage that we'd have a tough time enforcing. Other than any fire that's out there, the fire department would respond to if you call them that's unattended. We discussed that at the GDA meeting, so.
Could we do this one step at a time? Determine what we own and have
Oh,
the
yeah,
property surveyed,
Well-
and then get further input from the association and
Sure.
others. That's
Yeah,
just
I didn't
signage.
think we were gonna do all of it tonight, but yeah, I don't know, I agree. If we string this out for another 8 or 9 years, the next committee and board will be able to work on it. No, I don't disagree. That would be, any other thoughts?
So title search first.
Yeah, title search and survey.
Survey.
Yeah.
We could put that when we address our budget. Calculate, okay, maximum of 11 lanes at 1,000, include that in our budget.
Yep.
So it's still in question how many lanes the town actually owns.
Okay, we can do that. So generally speaking, the rest of the board is thinking it's a worthwhile effort, I assume?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like Linda said, let's put a fork in it.
Yeah.
Okay. You won't hear an argument from me. All right, we'll try and work that if we can. Next item is Town Park Restroom Concession Stand, and this is just information for the board, just to know where we're tracking. At some point in time, we got to come back together and talk about our capital equipment plan. And maybe September, I'm still working that with Amy. But just as an FYI, we are going to make a 100% effort to either restore, remodel, destroy the restrooms and reconstruct them in some way, shape, or form. And it is a priority for us. I mean, the park has really been upgraded over time, and the restrooms, if you've had the privilege of using them,
Have not.
have not. They are a step away from a porta potty. They have electricity and running water, but that's about it. So they need an upgrade, and they're in tough shape. We're investigating two options. We don't have any numbers, but one of them would be to build two smaller bathrooms, located one on the north side to address the pickleball tennis area, separate, and one on the south end to address it, so that the distance between both places is a little more accommodating, because right now it's a hike depending on where you're coming from. We're also going to investigate, obviously, just a standalone new bathroom and envisioning it close to the current concession stand, but out closer to the parking lot, a little bit to the north field, in between the trees. We don't want to do any damage to the trees that are standing and in good shape. And the beauty of this is, I called Henry Isaacson, who was the architect on this building, asking Henry if he could make a recommendation for an architect to use. And Henry, whose son is on the school board, his kids and grandkids went to Sevastopol schools, volunteered his time to do all of the work for us as an architect, which I couldn't thank him enough for doing. I've worked with him before. They're certainly extremely competent, and he's more than willing to take it on. And this will be a project that has to be bid, so I mean, it's not, we have to go to that level of detail. And anticipating, and this is just Henry off the top of his head, and what Jacksonport spent as well, it could be a couple $100,000. We do have a chunk of change in the capital budget, so we'll address that further. But and I really hope that as soon as we get anything close to a plan, and we can sit down with a couple people and get some ballpark numbers, I will make an effort to see what we can do for grants. We are using the, what is it, $8,000, Amy?
It is.
$8,500 that the Destination Door County gave us?
Just wait until my treasurer's report.
Oh, excuse me. I was way ahead of myself. Okay, so,
They're giving, when John Jarsh was on WDOR, they were giving, I can't remember, one of the town in Gibraltar got like 25,000.
they have different
But for their
criteria.
park, but it was a park thing, it was for
think it
the
was
park
more.
restoration and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and they're doing round, can we do another go at that, at the destination?
Destination Door
Community
County, I think, is
Investment Fund.
annual, right?
The Community Investment
The
Fund.
Community Investment Fund is, are you confusing or not confusing, but are you?
That was the-
Whatever John Jarsh was,
That was the Community Investment Fund, I believe,
Yeah.
that you're referring to.
but this
in
was like the
newspaper.
parks and,
If, I did see something on the parks. I contacted the Community Investment Fund to see if that was something we could potentially use for the restrooms. And from the documentation that I pulled off the internet and tried to fill out, I think it's going to be an uphill struggle. Because it really has to be tourist-related. Now, granted, having a nice.
They need to go to the bathroom.
You need to go to the
hey,
bathroom.
there's a lot of people that just stop in there on the way through to use the restrooms.
Yeah, well, it might be,
Quite a
but
bit.
you have to try and tie it back to overnight stays. So unless we can get some bums to spend the night in the restroom,
That's already happened. We had that a few years back.
so I don't know if we classify them as a stay. It's a little difficult. I can get together with them and talk further, but my initial gut feeling was it was a stretch. But there are other venues for us to get some matching funds. And, I'll pursue them as soon as we have an estimate on where this is going. So the hope would be if we can get Henry and Jeff to give us some plans and we get some numbers, maybe we can luck out and start something next spring, summer, which would be ideal. So we'll see. So,
I have a comment.
yes.
So I went to the Wisconsin Towns Association Council meeting this past weekend in Stevens Point, and we talked extensively about the new budget bill and shared revenue and all that. There is $300 million available for public safety, EMS, parks, any consolidated services, there's an additional $3 million available to help you write your grant. So, you know, instead of, I think it's time that we maybe give a go at some of these funds at the state level. We always seem to be hesitant, and we want to stick with either Raybrook or the Community Investment Fund or Destination Door County. I think it's time that Sevastopol started pursuing some of that.
All they can do is tell us no.
Exactly. Gibraltar applied for something. It cost them $10,000 to write the grant. They were denied. I don't know why, but, and this was not a shared revenue thing, it was something else. But
Did
I
they,
think just put our foot in the water and, you know, test these, and, I mean, it'd be really nice to get 200,000.
Can we ask Bay Lake Regional
Oh, yeah.
Planning to write the
even
grant to
the-
try to get some money?
Even Brett, they
That's
do
what
that,
process.
they write grants, what's his name, to Door County.
did they give you
We
any
pay the people.
specific fund? Because I get
Oh,
these
yeah,
things
that
in the
makes
mail
sense.
in the droves. And
well-
I mean, you don't have to give it to me now, but the biggest problem I have is trying to find one that we qualify for. And I've been watching for the obvious one, which is Shower Park Road. But by the time you look at, you know, you go safety, no, this one, no, it's like, whatever, I don't know. But if you have any specific funds, or if we can go back to the WTA representative and say, give me one that I
No,
can go.
Right, help us.
Yeah, help
Okay,
us.
the money is there. I don't think we could apply quite yet, but I thought when you get under committee and commission reports, I'd just give a
That's
little recap on what else I learned, because it was very educational.
Good, I mean, that's good. I mean, I know I've sent Thad a note here or there too about things, you know, maybe these grants play, maybe they don't, you know, sometimes they're at such a level that's, whatever.
Do
Okay.
you want me to make an inquiry?
Oh, yeah, I think we should. I mean, I have absolutely no problem chasing that if we can just define one that we believe is achievable. Or we're qualified to do. Next in your packet is the assessed value. This is Wisconsin Department of Revenue's statement of changes in equalized value by class and items. And I think we all are familiar with the fact on why we're doing a reval, because we've slipped so far out of sync with our actual values. And if you look at the report, we are, according to the state, we're $152 million off of what they believe our equalized value is. That's a chunk of change.
A little bit.
And so obviously that will change, and it does not necessarily mean that everybody's going to get a tax increase, because a rising tide raises all boats. I believe that's the term. So as the evaluations go up, it's spread equally across the town. The other component that's in there is the net construction for 2023. And I believe we're under the same rules yet, Amy, which is the 2% or net new construction.
Yes.
So you can anticipate based on that we got 1.33% in terms of increase in our budget or tax base, taxability, excuse me. Interesting that some of the communities, you know, Forestville was 2.76, which really surprised me. Egg Harbor was over 3%. Sister Bay, you'd expect 3%, but we're just a little behind the county of Door as a total at 1.3 versus 1.6. But it was an interesting report. So if your constituents ask you about any of that when it comes through reval or whatever, you might hang on to that and help them understand it. So, all right. So the next item under an agenda is resolution for the discontinuance of East Martin Road. So bear with me, I will read this, which is Resolution 2023-02, a resolution approving the discontinuance of East Martin Road in the town of Sevastopol pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 66.1003. Whereas this resolution was introduced before the Town Board of Sevastopol on June 19, 2023, Notice of pendency of application to vacate the below described property was filed with the Register of Deeds for Door County on June 19th. Notice of the hearing was published with a Class 3 notice. A copy of the said notice was served more than 30 days prior to the hearing date in a manner prescribed by law on the owners of all the frontage lots and land abutting upon the portion of the road to be discontinued, or a waiver of notice therefore was received, and a public hearing was held before the Town Board of Sevastopol on June 29th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Whereas no sufficient
It
written
has to be
objection.
changed to this date.
Pardon me?
That has to be changed to this date.
I was just gonna say, I thought the
Yeah.
date there is off. Whereas no sufficient written objection to said discontinuance and vacation has been filed with the clerk, now therefore, in accordance with the authority vested in the town board by section 66.1003 Wisconsin statutes, be it resolved that by the town board of the town of Sevastopol that East Martin Road, located in the town of Sevastopol, Door County, Wisconsin, and more fully described below, is herein vacated and discontinued since the public interest requires it. And I won't bother to read the legal description that's in there. The discontinuance of the above described public way will not result in any landlocked property, and no owner of property abutting the discontinued public way will be damaged by the discontinuance. Upon discontinuance of East Martin Road as a public road, the land where East Martin Road is located, including the right-of-way, shall be annexed to the owner of the adjoining lands pursuant to section 66.1005, subsection 1 of the Wisconsin State statutes. This resolution to discontinue a public way includes the written consent of the town of Sevastopol to the discontinuance of all easements and incidental rights under Wisconsin statute 66.1005, section 2, subparagraph A, as part of these proceedings. The town clerk shall properly post or publish this resolution as required by state statutes, and it was adopted this 21st day of August 2023. And I will just mention that the property in question is owned on both sides by Sequist Orchards. So he has known about this from day one, and obviously, therefore, it has no impact except anyone to Mr. Sequist. So, and he readily accepts the property. So, with that, we would need a motion to pass said resolution. Anybody has any questions, concerns?
I'll move to adopt resolution number 2023-2. Is that correct? This is only our second resolution of the year.
Yeah.
Approving the discontinuance of East Martin Road in the town of Sevastopol as described in the resolution.
We have a motion by Linda, a
Second.
second by Jeannie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Sequist, if you're listening, the road is yours. So, thank you. All right. Financial reports. You have the account balances, and you have the budget versus actual for January through July, and you have the transaction list by date for July as well. And I think Amy has a couple things she'd like to share before we go. Amy?
We have received the August settlement from the county. I have moved all the capital expenditure money into the correct accounts so that you will see that reflection in the next month's financial statements. We have started the payments for the town's reval, so you will see that in the financial statements this month. I've also submitted the proposal to Destination Door County for the updates on the restrooms and concession stands. And we have received payment of that money. That's, I believe it's $8,900.
That's 8 something, yes.
So we have received that check in the mail today
Great.
already. So we do have that money.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just one other FYI, and I've worked with Amy a little bit on this, so it's a work in progress, but we're still investigating different sources for placing town money. where we can get a little bit of bang for our buck, contacting Associated Nicolay and looking at alternatives. So hopefully we'll have that resolved with a recommendation for the next meeting. Okay? Any questions? If not, a motion to approve and put on file would be terrific.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial reports.
All right, Derek. Motion by Derek, second by
Second.
Mark. All right. Any other further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Great. All right, approval of vouchers, bills, and claims. I think everybody's had a chance to sign that? Yep. Any questions? If not, a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims from July 18th, 2023 through August 21st, 2023.
Okay, we have a motion by Mark, a second by Derek to approve vouchers, bills, and claims. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You can pay those bills.
Awesome.
All right. Oral committee commission reports. I know that Linda wants to make some comments, so we'll start with her and then move on from there.
Okay, I'll start with the Door County Tourism Zone Commission meeting that we had last Thursday, August 17th. The zone voted or approved the hiring of an additional full-time person to assist the administrator in the office, and adding an additional full-time person means that the current space is not large enough. So I'm pretty certain that the zone owns the condo unit in Sister Bay Country Walk. So at least that would be an asset that we could sell. But we did also discuss perhaps moving the office to closer to Sturgeon Bay. Juliana, our administrator, does live here in Sturgeon Bay, so that would be easier for her. And then also soliciting a candidate, maybe having the office in Sturgeon Bay would be a little more acceptable, or to somebody new coming in, more attractive. So that's pretty much a done deal. She is working up a job description. The Village of Ephraim has some questions on Destination Door County's use of the Door County Community Foundation and the Community Investment Fund. So Josh and a couple of the other commissioners are going to sit down and talk with the village officials on that. May and June room tax collections were actually lower than last year than expected, but the sales tax was higher. So I found that confusing. There are some delinquent reports and room tax due to the tune of about $32,000 at this point. There are 148 more short-term rentals in May of 2023 than there were in 2022. The average daily rate is now $358. We did also talk about if lodging providers are failing to file their permits and paying their room tax, is there some way that we can revoke that permit or notify municipalities that these lodging providers are delinquent? So that was another topic that might be brought back. Oh, and I didn't see it on our agenda, but on Wednesday, September 13th, right here at the Sevastopol Town Hall, Destination Door County is holding two master plan public sessions. I think one in the morning up north, and then the evening, Wednesday, September 13th, right here, 5:30 p.m. At the Sevastopol Town Hall. So I don't know if Jeannie has anything to add on the Tourism Zone Commission.
I do have one question, which is really not that relevant, but why did the office end up in Sister Bay to begin with?
Because Bob Kuffren, if you remember Bob
Sure,
Kuffren,
Bob was
that's
the
where he
administrator.
was, and it just worked
Yep.
out. Kim, I think Roberts at the time was up there as well, so
That makes
to be a-
sense. Bob was the
yeah.
administrator for Sister Bay.
Right.
Okay.
But now Josh, being the chairman of the
Right.
commission, and he's in Sturgeon Bay, so they just talked about Sturgeon Bay. Like I said, I did attend the Wisconsin Towns Association council meeting in Stevens Point this past weekend, and every time I go to these meetings, I'm just amazed at the amount of information that is available to us. If you saw this increase in shared revenue in the Peninsula Pulse, you can thank Wisconsin Towns Association, their lobbyists, and Assemblyman Tony Kurtz and Senator Mary Blaskowski. They spearheaded that. It's a give and take situation, so we're going to have or be eligible for much more shared revenue. But one of the things that the governor did veto was, right now we're receiving $2,748 per mile. We had requested, an annual increase. That got nixed. But like I said, there are so many dollars available in, especially in the local road improvement funds. So whether it's discretionary or your entitlement or your supplemental or whatever, there are so many dollars out there. Some of these are a 50-50 grant, some of them are a 90-10 grant, so we would only have to kick in 10%. So again, I would encourage,
Are these
that
administered
part.
by, are these the ones that are still administered by the county?
They're still administered by the county as of now, but there's 2 districts that are under a pilot program where unit chairs are going to be monitoring the committee with the highway commissioner. Right now, we are fortunate, thank you Thad Ash, he does all the work for us. We'll probably be having a meeting here next month. Thad does most of the work for us and even puts the bids out for us. But in the future, that's going to fall more to the towns.
Do we know if there is an increase in the LRIP for our community or town, county? Do you know if there's any?
The local road improvement, I don't know what,
Any of
I
these
don't
funds
know.
flow down to the county level for the next go-round?
Well, the county definitely counties definitely benefit with this, the Act 12, the shared
Right.
revenue was incorporated into the budget. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to the county numbers. I was more interested in the
curious.
town. But, and when we make these applications for LRIP, whether it's local or supplemental or discretionary, there's like 1,300 applications that get sent in, and there's 15 people rating them. So whatever we can include in there, photos, narratives, safety, traffic count, put it all in there to convince that judging panel that we merit it. Only 13 counties received TRID dollars last time. So, and another thing was, our roads are just as important as the state highways and the county roads. If somebody's placing a 911 call, that road better be available to get that ambulance down the road. So we're just as important. And of course, we all know that we're going to be getting 1 cent out of every 5 cents. Was it every 5 cents of sales tax?
Oh, you mean from
Municipalities will get back 1 cent. So, and this was a good point they made. That's actually an economic driver. So the more business you are doing, the more sales tax you are collecting. So it's all about economics. It's, so be open to maybe expanding your businesses or whatever we can do in our town. So even though we might have to say, well, we don't want that in our backyard, but evaluate the whole picture and decide what's best for the town.
Sevastonomics.
Yeah, and Milwaukee is on the verge, Milwaukee County is on the verge of bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have enough money to fund their pension. So what they've done is they've added am I exceeding my time limit?
No,
Oh,
you're fine.
they've added a 2 cents sales tax.
Yeah.
And their pension plans now, instead of being private, they're all going to be through the Wisconsin retirement system, and hopefully get back on track. They have misspent their dollars.
It should have been there.
So
in the
bad.
first place.
Yeah, so I found that very interesting. And I think anyway, they said it was a win-win. This budget was a win-win for municipalities
Well, shared
compared to what we
revenue,
had before.
our shared revenue number went up 200 or 300%. Do you remember the number, Amy? Or maybe Linda's got it, but
Well, we went from,
Large.
it was a huge increase.
yes,
Large.
we went
Oh,
from
there it is.
33 to 70, from 33,000 to almost $80,000. Yeah. And so, like I said, they said it's $230 million increase for towns alone in the budget. It's just phenomenal. So, thank you for bearing with me.
No problem. Anyone else wishing to? Ginny, anything
Oh, for my committee?
you'd like? You don't have to.
Well, I'll give an update on the audio. The gentleman that Phil Hendrickson, has stepped away from the project, and he's referred a gentleman by the name of Roger Udi, if I'm saying that right, IHDE, from Northern Sound in Green Bay. I have talked with him, and we will be meeting to discuss where we go from here. And Phil did sit down and talk to this gentleman about what we were looking at doing, and so he has requested to meet with us, and we will do so after the broadband work is complete. So,
What was the reason you walked away?
well, he says he's retired 3 times already, so I think he just decided maybe this is another time. He's into the 70s. So, and he
very
may not have
confusing.
wanted to take on the project on as it was transpiring, so.
We changed some of the
He-
specs on
yeah.
on what was going to be put into the office here, and as a result, he had a learning curve and a teaching issue, and so he really wanted to move on.
He preferred somebody else to take care of it, and so we are going to move with that. And then as you see on the list, that we will be meeting, the Communications Technology Committee meeting will happen on August 24th at 11:30, and it will be closed session, because at that time we will look to make a recommendation. The recommendation we will be making to the board in the September meeting
For broadband.
for broadband.
Yeah.
Correct.
Broadband. Okay.
Switched.
Anything else from anyone else? All right, if not, we do have the Communications Technology Committee meeting minutes from June 28th. We need to approve those and put those on file, so a motion would be in order for that.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 28th, 2023 for the Communications Technology Committee.
All right, motion by Jeannie, second by? Second by Mark. All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one? Motion carried, thank you. All right. Let's see here. Oh, next on our agenda is county board report from District 14 Supervisor Hugh Zell. Hugh, it's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to provide a couple brief updates so you can stay on your time budget that you discussed at the beginning of the meeting. An amendment was made to the addressing system manual for the county, which means that the county is now putting out a formal request for a proposal for doing new 911 addressing for 19,000 addresses in the county that the county is responsible for. That work will probably start early next year. And the signs are going to, the big change is going to be for most of the areas of the county. The signs will be perpendicular to the road, so you can see the address on both sides. And I believe the sign's color will be blue, if I'm not mistaken. So that work involves, removing the old signs, removing the old posts, installing new posts, making sure they're visible. I think they're probably going to do some initial pilots, probably starting in the southern part of the county, where they have a lot of rural addressing challenges. But for residents that have asked questions about should they get their signs replaced where they are fading, tell them to please wait, because that work will start in earnest next year to replace all of them in the county. The Land Use Services Department also updated its department fees. Many of the fees have not been updated since 2009. So one of the things that I've kind of stressed to them is doing two things. One is making sure they look at it judiciously and also benchmark Door County against other similar counties, that have a similar sort of mix of rural and tourism. When you think of places like Walworth County that has a large agricultural plus a large tourism, seasonal homeowners, when you think of Lake Geneva area, et cetera, they should look at their fees accordingly. And they've made some substantial improvements in those fees. The other is, when we discussed it in fees, it hasn't been updated, but it was looked at, and we'll look at in the future, relative to some of the recommendations for doing additional fees for conditional use permits to help fund improved enforcement. And also similar to with new construction, you have to basically place a bond, and doing something along those lines to create more incentives so that they do the improvements, like vegetative screening, those sorts of things. And so we'll continue discussions on that, but I think there was some initial receptivity just because of the challenges of that enforcement not being done and the non-compliance by a lot of continued use permit holders. So that's something that I'll continue to push as a member of the Resource Planning Committee. Also, we got our first look at a strategic plan for the budget for next year. We'll be talking more about that at tomorrow's meeting. And we'll have a kind of a working session in September at the Landmark to basically go through the entire budget. Probably the biggest line item on there is the potential for bonding to do the new digital land mobile radio, which is mandated to be done, I believe, around 2026. As part of that, the county has gone through an initial process of looking at where they need to add towers in order so that they can get the necessary coverage that they need. We have some particular challenging areas with the existing analog VHF systems, such as a lot of basically anywhere along Bayshore Drive where you have to deal with the cliffs and the bluffs in the lower area. Some sections around Whitefish Dunes, Cave Point area. There's some dead spots along that eastern area there on the lake side as well. There's also some areas, if you think of clay banks, again, they're a lower bluff area, also some challenging areas. So they'll be adding towers where that's significant. In my other role as chairperson of the broadband committee is a lot of those all those towers have to be fed by fiber in order to bring the data there to be transmitted through those towers. So we're going to make sure that they share that information with the town so we can minimize digging extra trenches and sharing line and being able to share lines, those sorts of things, so the taxpayer's not paying twice. So there'll be more on that forthcoming. Also, relative to other town-related matters, the county has received its permit from the state for the Gordon Road improvement. They are in the midst of ordering material for construction. Most likely around some of the concrete structures for culverts, extensions, et cetera, at that intersection. And they are looking to do some of the other approach work along the old highway road sections and planning that, ahead of the September Labor Day, kind of moratorium from which they can start at the intersection. So they're ordering material, getting things scheduled. So we'll see that start in earnest over the next month, and hopefully we'll see some visible signs of that to report on at the next town board meeting.
Cool.
With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Go ahead.
Does the Gordon Road, will that include an acceleration lane heading south then off of
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes, that
With
was.
a direction to go to the roundabout?
Correct.
Like 47, 42 north, go that way?
There will be a lot of signage, but for folks that are going to turn right to head southbound on 4257, yeah, the state required an acceleration lane to be built or to be constructed. Yep.
With the new signs going, that process, are they anticipating having to do any renumbering? In other words, did they plan ahead enough, or is it possible you're going to have your residence number changed?
For addresses on properties?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if you think, look at Glidden or Park Road or whatever, did they plan enough ahead to allow for a construction of a house with a numbering option? So do they have to, are they anticipating having to renumber any areas? Street numbers, house
No.
numbers?
No, they went in, they went in with a consultant, and the consultant was the same one that actually did the original numbering system that they did back in the 90s when they did that. And so a lot of their challenges that were reflected in the manual were changes to update, to make things consistent for like condominium numbering, or numbering of, multiple properties that shared, for example, the same private road. Some of them are stacked, or they'll, have dashes of numbers in between, 3001 to 3010. So they clarified some of those. They also added some guidelines for campsites, even though they don't dictate that, they provided some guidance so that it makes that easier for emergency services. And as part of this manual review, the RPC committee specifically solicited feedback from Sheriff's Department, EMS, the fire chief that represents all the fire departments in the county to get their feedback, since obviously they're the key stakeholders, at least from an emergency services perspective.
Cool.
And so we got their concurrence as well on that.
Okay. One other one is the RPC. As I think most of you know, I went to the RPC meeting a number of months back and raised the issue of vegetative screening and the fact that there was a lot of non-compliance. So is that come up on the agenda, or is it part of a future agenda, screening? Because you just talked about putting some dollars into land use services for enforcement. Is that one of the areas that you think they're going to address?
It'll be an area. There are some areas within the comprehensive ordinance that we've talked to Mariah about revisiting, and vegetative screening is one of them.
Okay. All right. If you need moral support, I'd be happy to bring some more pictures, because obviously there continues to be dwellings that need help.
It's a challenge, and I think that's where some of the suggestion actually was brought up by Madam Clerk over here about using a similar sort of carrot and stick, if you will, that you do with construction bonding,
Right.
to basically, have them put a bond out there, and if they're not compliant, they don't get their money back. So I think that might be the kind of incentive that is needed, so we'll continue to push that, Mr. Chairman.
Cool. Thank you. Anything else? Otherwise, thank you. Appreciate it. Always does a nice job for us. All right. You have in here Door County Inspections Report for the month, and I have a note here on, I think some of you are aware that Brett Timmy is in the process of retiring, and I believe that Brett's probably with us till the end of the year. Is that right, Amy?
I
We
would say-
anticipate?
I would anticipate till the end of the year. I would, January 1st, I would think he's pretty
Okay.
much done.
He's given notice to some of the other towns in the county. We have not received notice from him yet, and so we're expecting we'll get through the fall. But it'll probably be on our October agenda on how we want to start the plan to replace him. From looking at a couple of the other town agendas, at least at this point, unless somebody knows somebody different, it's Mr. Inigal and/or Brett Gillett. Thank you. I don't know if there's a third player in that game or not, but anyway, we'll have to make some decisions with respect to that. And I'll put that on the October agenda. So,
To make sure he is fully retiring. Because what we've heard in the trades that he's cutting back,
And we've heard that too.
and the guy that's working with him said that he hasn't heard about the retirement fully yet, that he's cutting back, getting rid of municipalities too, so.
Yeah, and I
It's
asked,
sure nice to know
right,
from Brett.
Yeah.
yeah, and we'll have to have that conversation, because I'd heard basically the same thing, that maybe he's gonna fall back and work with maybe one or two, just kind of keep his hand, I don't know what's involved there. But, at any rate. Off to correspondence, Jim Mitchie's not here tonight. He's mentioned by the DNR as being given a permit, so that probably makes him very happy. There's also, there's also one in here that is not very happy because they have to move all of their rocks out because they don't have a permit. So, and Linda mentioned the Door County Tourism Zone in her piece, that there are short-term rental owners that have not paid their fees, and 2 of those are in our town, and have been on their list for quite some time, and I believe they don't make it public until such time as they end up taking the individual through legal pathway. The individual in this case, by the way, was also late on his short-term rental permit. So, and Amy and I dealt with a lot of those issues that we didn't, work through with you, but I've asked Linda to bring the short-term rental back as a topic to just make a couple of tweaks. One of them being, if we're gonna have a grace period on a short-term rental, we want it defined and what the, what we'll do with it, and so it's in black and white. And after that, they're under the new rules. So she'll do that at a future date, but just wanted to share that with you. And then, what do I have here? I can't even read it. I'll skip that. So, then we have the computer aid, 2598. Put that towards new computers then, Amy.
It's not gonna get us too far, but okay.
Well, we could maybe get dust, maybe like a mouse pad.
A mouse or something.
Mouse pad.
Yeah.
Shared revenues, Amy already talked to, and then the video component from the state. This is where they decided to change the way at Charter's request. So now the state makes up the difference that Charter doesn't, $7,000 roughly, right? And then there's the estimate of our population. We grew by 26 people, we're now up to 2,852. And there's 2,448 people that are of voting age in the town. And I think, I'm not sure, maybe Linda, you know this, but it seems to me like once we get to 3,000 people in the town, some things can change in our structure. Is that,
3,000?
was it 3,000? Is
5,000,
it 5?
something will change.
Anyway, we're a couple years away.
If I could just go back to, on that shared revenue thing, they are doing away with personal property tax as of January 1st. No more personal property reporting, but we're gonna receive a payment in lieu of that, so.
Oh, well, that's
And
very
I don't know
generous.
what it amounts to, 14,000 maybe a year, something like that.
We'll take it. Bay Lake Regional Planning Commission, they sent us a notice of our levy for them. I forgot to do the calculation for the meeting, but I'm assuming we're gonna see an increase given the change in our
It's
equalized
very-
value.
Very slight.
Pardon me?
Like,
It's very, yeah.
Is it?
Steve?
Should be a lot, given the change from 152 million.
Yes, but I haven't.
Is that a definite
It's just-
maybe?
It's
It's either
definite-
yes or it's
definite.
no.
Bay Lake Regional Planning's, they're only going up slightly, but yes, it will be significant based on our equalized value, yes.
Okay, so the point of that conversation is,
Yes,
yes, thank you for that. But going to our conversation of earlier, they will do grant writing.
yes.
And we are paying them a healthy piece of change, so we really do want to use them for that purpose. So I don't care what it is, you got something that you're thinking about, let's
Yep.
engage them in that process.
Yep.
All right, so recapping, as Jeannie mentioned earlier, the communications technology meeting of August 24th is at 11:30. It is a closed session because they're dealing with the last of the broadband RFPs and the selection of an RFP recommendation. So you're aware that we're making progress on it, but don't come to the meeting. So that's, we could have probably left it off. Any rate, the class tournaments, which are held at our park, are on September 2nd and 3rd. Broadband public hearing, which we originally had planned for this week, I believe the 23rd,
Yeah.
has been moved to September 7th as a result of our having to go back out and rebid the project. So we will see you if you're interested on September 7th. Tell you all about it. And the Communications and Technology meeting is, next one is on September 13th. That's an open meeting. That's to discuss anything that comes out of the public hearing that we need to adjust. And then our next board meeting is Monday, September 18th at 7 p.m. And with that, the only thing left on our agenda is a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Derek's going to move. That's shocking.
Motion to adjourn.
Second by Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
We are adjourned. Thank you.